Speed is probably one of the most important stats in Honkai Star Rail, while also simultaneously being the most confusing to understand. Just do any Google search on the topic and you'll see tons of results of people trying to explain this really weird stat. The problem with speed is that the fundamental math of how it works is not intuitive at all, nor is there a really clear way of showing how they work either. Like, look at the three main formulas for calculating turn order. For anyone that isn't into math, they might as well be an alien language. But I found this really cool Reddit post, link is in the description, that gave an intuitive way of thinking about speed and turn order. So here's my attempt at animating their idea so that people can visualize speed in a more friendly manner: the turn order racetrack. The racetrack analogy starts from the formula for action value. While we don't need to know what this formula is doing, there is a key bit of info here which we need to talk about, which is that 10,000 number. The number is important because for our analogy, we want to set our racetrack to be 10,000 units long. If it's easier to imagine it as 10,000 feet or 10,000 meters or inches, that's fine, but the important part is that it is 10,000 of one unit. Once you start thinking of that 10,000 number as distance, the speed stat becomes much easier to understand because now we can actually treat it as speed, which is how fast a character can run a lap around the straight track. And finishing one lap is when you can take your turn. The faster you are, the faster you can complete one lap, the faster you can take your next turn. In-game, taking turn thus translates to fast forwarding the race until someone completes a lap. The unit then can do their action, then the race is fast forwarded again until the next unit completes a lap and takes their turn. So if a character has 127 speed, then every tick of time means that they run 127 units of this racetrack. If we calculate out how many ticks of 127 it takes to run 10,000 units, it ends up being 78.74 ticks. This is what the game calls action value, essentially how long it would take for a character to do a single lap of this racetrack. My Stell does have 127 speed, and if we slow down at the beginning of a battle, we can see that the starting action value is indeed 79, the supposed time it would take for our character to run a lap. Using this analogy, you can animate the entire battle as a race. Doing so gives a really good sense of how much faster a character is and how important speed is, while also seeing how soon their next turn is. Do note, the outside track here is longer geometrically, but I scaled it properly so that it still follows the 10,000 unit length rule. With this knowledge, effects that increase speed like Asta's ult become really easy to understand. When she activates her ult, then for the duration of the effect, your team will just run around the racetrack faster. The final thing to understand about turn order is action forward and action delay effects, like the effect on the light cone Dance Dance Dance. In our racetrack analogy, these two effects are simply you teleporting forward or backwards. In the case of Dance Dance Dance, the 16% that it lists there is you jumping forward 16% of the 10,000 unit distance, or to put it another way, you teleport forward 1600 units. This makes action change effects far more powerful than speed change effects, as demonstrated here by this clip. These monsters have an action delay on hit of 50%, so each hit teleports Stell back 5,000 units on our racetrack. This means that the 2 hits sends Stell back 10,000 units, which actually puts her back more than a single lap. If we simulate out the race, the 2 monsters will then finish another lap before Stell can catch up, which will then send her back another full 10,000 units again. As a final topic, we should talk about MOC and why speed is so often discussed there. It all has to do with this thing, the cycle timer, which determines what the community calls speed breakpoints. The cycle timer officially has an action value of 150 on the first turn and 100 action value on all following turns. In our racetrack analogy, you can imagine this as the cycle also racing around with our characters. And on the first turn, it has a speed of 66.67, then on all following turns, it has a speed of 100. Animating out the race now, we can see why 134 speed is the first breakpoint. You can see that our character can just barely make 2 laps before the cycle can finish their first lap. But after the cycle gets faster, 134 speed is no longer fast enough to get in another 2 laps. If you've ever searched deep enough in theory crafting, you might have seen this speed spreadsheet. The numbers on here are breakpoints, which are essentially calculating how fast you have to be able to lap the cycle racer multiple times. So for example, if I wanted to have 3 turns on the 0th cycle, I need to have a speed of 201. Similarly, if I want to have 4 turns before cycle 2, I need to have 161 speed. Hopefully this video has shed some light on how speed really works in Honkai Star Rail. Definitely made it easier to visualize how it works for me. Anyway, thanks for watching.